Welcome to Meaningful Morning. I read a book to our children called Superworm. How many of you have read the book Superworm before? You should put it on your reading list. And in this book, there's a repetition of Superworm is super long. Superworm is super strong. Watch him wiggle, see him squirm. Hip hip hooray for Superworm. And it's quite catchy. The fact that I still remember it shows how this book works. So yesterday, in the morning before our kids were going to school, we were raking the leaves. And I chanted out loud, "We're working hard, we're working smart." Then Vyasa added, "We're working for Babanji." So then that became our theme. We're working hard, we're working smart, we're working for Babanji. Then Shuka added, "In our heart." And I shared this with you because I feel this is really the theme song of Meaningful Mornings. For most of us, our more intense work has not begun in terms of professional meetings, errands, etc. So if we can internalize in our heart is Babanji, then we will work smart and we will work hard. The Bhagavad Gita, and I'm already in that mindset of us completing the entire Bhagavad Gita, is like a masterpiece that's floating in space. Whenever you go to an art gallery and there's a masterpiece, it is supported by a wall or a stand. But the Bhagavad Gita is a masterpiece that's floating in space, and that enables us to see Bhagavad Gita from all perspectives. You can't do that if it's supported by a wall or a stand. And this is what we're doing. We are appreciating Bhagavad Gita as a masterpiece, for it is the masterpiece. The narrative we're approaching right now from the 17th chapter has multiple perspectives: conviction, association, dedication, renunciation, contribution. Now we're flowing through another perspective, sharing more insights into dana or contribution. Because Puja Swami Tejomayananda had shared, with dana or contribution, Sri Krishna sets the bar very high. This very high bar he associated with the word love. That's why I had mentioned a gift is that which is given with love. How do you tune into this love? The preceding step is caring. The preceding step is sharing. Many of us studied Moha Mudgara or Bhajagovindam together. In the 11th verse, there is a statement, Ma Kuru Dhana Garva. One should not be prideful about their resources. And so, reflecting on this more, we can only give what is ours. And anyone who's being honest, being humble, one comes to realize that nothing is ours. And that's why the final practice in bhakti or dedication is nivedana of the Atma. It is where you stop offering what the Creator already created, but you offer the ego The Creator never created that. I had mentioned yesterday about how, as we are evolving, our contribution becomes less calculated. You don't think about it, you just act. And the reason for this is because as you're evolving, you feel a oneness with those around you, those you are offering to. In our parenting culture course I had shared, parents are often the most money insensitive, meaning they feel such a oneness with their child or children that they spend any amount of money on them. Can we do the same with all? And my mind goes to our yatras. When we are on our yatras, and suppose we have to buy coconuts or we have to order dinner, I feel on our yatras everyone is ready to contribute for everyone. But we're also on a Jivan Yatra or a life pilgrimage. I had mentioned yesterday that my aspiration is on a succession plan where our charities are led by those of the second generation. Now think lots about this. The word generation doesn't have to do with age only, it also has to do with culture. Agreed? And so, I have found with a different cultural generation, and I'm going to highlight my mother. She's of a different generation in terms of age and culture. When we were growing up, she always insisted that we celebrate Deepavali as a family, at home. And I've shared with her, and I'm sharing with all of you, this is a colonial mentality. When those living in India or Bharat were being restricted, were being controlled, so nobody wanted to step over that boundary. But in terms of history, when Bhagavati Sita and Sri Rama came back to Ayodhya, the entire society came to welcome them. Yes, relatedly, this difference in age and culture, we of a different age and culture, and again going back to my parents, whenever giving was thought of, they didn't do it because for 1,000 years it was taken from them, their own resources. I think they calculated that foreigners took from Bharat more than $1 trillion worth of valuables. Imagine what India could do with $1 trillion. So we hoarded it. And even when we gave with our name. That way, it seemed reasonable for those who were controlling Bharat. Are you feeling me? Yes, way more than $1 trillion. I couldn't calculate it. Someone shared 43 trillion. So, we have to think lots about how dana is not just charity, it's about your personality. It is about your personality prints and how we have to start to share more. In the Yaksha Prashna, one of the questions was, how does one become wise? And the answer Yudhishthira gives, it is to serve the elderly. As in learn from them, but be better than them. Everyone's clear about why we have to have a different generation mindset. And here's my final thought on this before we come to our present classification. If a teacher or organization requires you or is encouraging you to give by name to create a certain infrastructure, don't do it. Suppose I'm building a mandir or an ashram and I need this amount of funds, and so the way to get funds is I'm going to put your name in this kitchen, in this shrine, If I were a contributor, I wouldn't do it. We don't need more infrastructure. We need more culture. I shared in Connecticut just a few days ago about how hurt I was when we were playing soccer and they brought bags of water bottles, disposable water bottles. For 2.5 years, I've been committing myself completely to serving our Prithvi, and then this is brought. And I shared with everyone, I would rather struggle with thirst than use this water bottle. Understood? Don't do it. Clear? In verse 23, Shri Krishna has begun a different classification in reference to how do we feel infinity. And he's given us Om Tat Sat. Om Tat Sat is a methodology to rise. Om is gross, Tat is subtle, Sat is causal. If one thinks of Sat or existence, it has no name. It has no form. It has no qualities. So just like you go from Tama to Raja to Sattva, you go from Om to Tat to Sat. And who's sharing this? Shri Krishna shares the Creator has manifested this methodology. When it comes to dedication, renunciation, contribution, it's so logical. Better than not giving is giving with selfishness. But better than that is giving with selflessness. But in terms of Om Tat Sat, it seems less logical. So Shri Krishna shares, the Creator has revealed this to thinkers, the Brahmanas. The Brahmanas have revealed this through maps, and the maps reveal to us how to be helpful. Hence the word yajna. And the assertion of why this is put into this chapter is for one to say Om Tat Sat more. That was your application, correct? Keep it close to you. When you say it, it radiates to your actions and it radiates to your thoughts. When one is engaged in yajna or tapa or dana and it's incomplete, then if you say Om Tat Sat, it helps you to rise to more completion. In some rituals, there is a pujari there, a priest, whose only responsibility is to engage in japa. While all of this and this and this is happening, that priest is only sharing Om Namo Narayanaya, Om Namo Narayanaya, Om Namo Narayanaya, to fill in any selfishness with selflessness. They're correcting that ritual, which is really protecting that ritual. The word japa means that which protects. Verse 24, Shri Krishna is opening up Om Tat Sat. Tasmad Om Ityudahritya Yajnadana Tapakriyaha Pravartante Vidanoktaha Satatam Brahmavadinam. Tasmat. Joy and tasmat are similar words. Tasmat, you know this is a completing thought. Therefore, iti, this is what you should do. Om Udahritya, you should say Om. When? Kriyaha, when you are engaged in yajna, dedication, dana, contribution, tapa, renunciation. Pravartante, do this before you engage in this, while you engage in this. Vidanoktaha, Whatever you're engaged in is following the Shastra or scripture. If this is unclear to you, go back to the beginning of chapter 17. I will share more insights about that tomorrow. Who does this? Brahmavadinam, those who are students of Brahma, students of infinity, satatam, this is what they do. This is how they live. Om is a methodology to take us from being conscious of being awake, being conscious of dreaming, being conscious of sleeping, to consciousness. More important than chanting Om is the silence between chanting Om. From confusion to application. Your application yesterday was to write out Om Tat Sat. Can you show me? All of you who wrote it? Good. Yes. And to keep it with you, Sri Krishna is so compassionate. He knows that what we do is filled with little faith or less faith. And all he's telling us, if you chant Om Tat Sat, you'll have more faith. Like, that's the least we can do is say Om Tat Sat. Your application for this morning, Om Tat Sat is the final classification of this appendix. Then we get into our summary of the Bhagavad Gita. What classification do you think should be added to chapter 17? Suppose you discuss with Sri Krishna, you excluded this. You should add more verses in the Bhagavad Gita. What classification should be added? What do you need? What does humanity need? Shanti, 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 be joy.